Hello everyone, so this is the Vegans Are Discussing, and we have two guests here, Peter and Barb, who are the founders of the Toronto Anti-Vivisection Alliance. Hi.
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 Hi, everyone.
And
Hello.
hello. And if you have questions, you can raise your hands. I'm talking for everyone, obviously, but we will like to know more about your animal rights work and what you do. So first of all, there might be some people watching who don't know what is wrong with animal testing or vivisection, and what do you tell those people who don't know what is wrong with that?
Peter, do you mind if I answer this question?
Absolutely, go ahead.
And certainly feel free to jump in. We know that animal testing is, of course, unethical, right? We wouldn't want it done to us, so why should we do it to somebody else? And obviously, as vegans, we are of the mindset that we're no different from animals in all ways that matter. So they can feel pain just like we can feel pain. They feel happiness just like we feel happiness, and so on and so forth. We also know that animal testing is ineffective. What is it? 95% of all drugs tested or deemed to be quote unquote safe and effective in animal trials fail in human clinical trials. So actually animal testing is not effective and it's not benefiting humans, not to mention, of course, the animals. There are lots of alternatives, non-animal methods available, some which have been around for decades. I believe it's the organ on chip technology that's been around for maybe 30 years. Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but non-animal methods are actually a lot more effective. They are a lot faster and they are a lot cheaper. So it really doesn't make sense why we are stuck in the past and we continue exploiting these animals. But, you know, the argument that these institutions, I don't think they actually make this argument, so to speak, but I think the mindset is that it's always been done this way, right? And that's a very dangerous sort of mindset to have, because have we not evolved? You know, we've moved away from a lot of things that we have done in past history that we now know is not the right thing to do. So I think that's kind of the approach we take, where we try to explain not only the ethics, because not everybody is sort of on board with that side of things, especially people who are, you know, not vegans, but we try to appeal to the part of them that the sort of the scientific aspect, to let them know it doesn't even make sense. They're not effective. It costs more. It takes too long and it doesn't benefit humans at all.
Yeah.
Peter, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered, like you said, the majority of medicines that, you know, have deemed to be, you know, passed while during animal testing phase, 90 to 95% do fail at clinical trials. It's like Alzheimer's. We've been able to cure Alzheimer's in mice, but we can't transition that to humans. We have over 50 medicines that can cure HIV and AIDS in, you know, animals, but again, every one of those fails when they go through the human clinical trial. So it's like Barb, you mentioned, it's completely ineffective. 90 to 95% it's insane. Any other industry that had that rate, you know, would surely not be in business and would surely look for alternatives. So we need to push this forward.
It's a complete waste of money. I mean, if you want to boil it down to the bottom line, it's a complete waste.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And how did you came up with the idea of TAVA? How did you start this organization?
So let me just close this window here. So back in the summer of, what was it, 2020, right, Peter?
Yes.
Our friend Betty was asked to plan a sort of one-time event here locally as part of a larger worldwide event to protest vivisection and to bring awareness to animal testing and everything that's wrong with it. She agreed, and she brought Peter on board to help out, and then Peter brought me on board. And so we started planning this event, and in September of 2020, we held a demonstration at the University of Toronto Mississauga campus. Mississauga is a city right next to Toronto, just west of Toronto. And to our great surprise, pleasant surprise, a ton of people showed up to support this cause, this event. We had over 50 people show up, and you know, we did our outreach, we did our demonstration, we did everything that we thought we needed to do. And shortly after that event ended, we started sort of thinking, well, there really isn't anybody in the greater Toronto area, and even like beyond, as far as we know, focusing specifically on animal testing. And so we were so inspired after this event to sort of fill that gap. And so by the following month, October, TAVA was born. Now, unfortunately, Betty is no longer with us as part of TAVA, but she was a critical piece of sort of founding this organization. And so her contributions obviously have a lasting effect, but it sort of happened organically. It wasn't something, you know, we set out to do, like we have to do this, but we realized after that event that there was a need for somebody to step into that role to fight for these animals languishing in laboratories. There was nobody focusing specifically on that in our community.
Yeah, that's very good that it just happened organically. And I see that in Hungary, there are no specific organization that is focusing on animals in laboratories, but that's just because the animal rights movement it's just not there yet. There are so many things lacking, and we are trying to fill this gap, but we are there are so few of us. So I really hope that we will get to a point where we can focus on more specific areas rather just trying to do everything at the same time. But it's really nice to hear that that it happened and that you got a lot of support from the public. So Christoph?
So if I understand correctly, you didn't even advertise any of the demonstrations. It just happened that people joined you in a way, because for us, it's very difficult to get people to actually participate in these demonstrations. There's basically 30 of us and we do everything. And we're spread basically across 5 different cities. So even that 30 is divided up into smaller sections. So is there a technique that you use to get people to support your cause, or
we actually did advertise that initial event, which is how so many people found out about it. But we should mention that here in Toronto and the greater Toronto area, so like cities surrounding Toronto, we have a lot of animal rights activists. This is a very active community. And so from what you're describing over there, it's a very different situation, because we have almost like a built-in number of people who are ready to support these causes, because we have a very established network of people who are active. We have several Save Movement chapters. We have Toronto Pig Save, Toronto Cow Save, Toronto Fish Save, like the list goes on. And then and there's so many other sectors like Anonymous for the Voiceless and so on. So we did advertise it publicly on a Facebook event, but it wasn't really a challenge to get people, because we have a very strong community here of animal rights activists.
And since this was the first anti-vivisection event that the community in the city has seen or was able to participate in many, many years, people were more motivated to come out and take part. So we had a very successful first event.
Okay.
Now, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, so you already had basically an animal rights movement that you built this specific topic on, whereas we don't really have that. So okay.
Yeah, and
we don't have that yet.
Yes, but yet being the key word, right? And I do want to mention that because this was all during COVID, and I don't know what the situation was like in Hungary, but here we had a lot of ups and downs with COVID. So we had like a lockdown, reopening or partial reopening, another lockdown, and things were back and forth a lot. And so around the time that we had this protest in September of 2020, things were okay, not that great. But then as the fall season went on and we got closer to the winter, things got worse again. And remember, this was the first year of COVID. So we then had to take a step back and we started to do, I guess you could call them, I don't know if private events is the right wording, but we did not advertise our events to the public. We created private event pages and we would invite people who we knew would come to support us, but we did this in order to minimize our numbers and to sort of observe like public health safety precautions. And so even with that, we had quite a bit of support, but again, we had people who we were able to reach out to. So it wasn't really that big of a challenge. I think it's a very different situation from what you're describing you have over there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this first protest was a word protest, right? And what do you think, why is it important to participate and initiate word protests, like compared to only local ones?
Peter, you want to answer? Or
can you repeat your question, Eniko? Are you talking about the world event, the world protest we put together?
Yes. Why do you think it's important in general?
Making it global.
Yeah. Why make it global?
Perfect. Well, this is a global issue, right? It's not a vivisection and animal testing is not specific to any one country. It's an issue that is, across the world, right? There's over 100 million animals per year that are that we know of, that are being tested and tortured in animal facilities, from universities to private laboratories to hospitals. So this is a world problem. So when we were deciding to do an event this year for World Day for Animals and Laboratory Animals, we decided to not only do a local event, but we also wanted to reach out to good organizations and great people, activists such as yourselves, to participate and combine our voices, right? The louder we are, the more people will hear us, and the bigger impact we can make, the more of a change. And we also thought it was very important for us to reach out and to meet and connect with different groups across the world, right? So that way we can share ideas, we can support each other, we can participate, maybe not in person, but we can participate by sharing posts, signing and sharing petitions, being involved. The more we are, and again, I firmly believe the stronger we are, and the stronger we are, the louder our voice, and the sooner we can make an impactful change and get people to transition to non-cruelty, cruelty-free items, and get governments, or at least to help governments and institutions to implement bans on animal testing. So that was our thought process, and it worked really well. our first, for the first event, we got a total of 32 cities to participate. So that was beyond our expectations.
I think it ended up being
that's really cool.
27 in the end, but still quite a few. And like Peter said, we're stronger together, and hopefully the people who saw our event, whether it was in passing, live, in person, or online, hopefully they take it more seriously, because they see, exactly as Peter said, it's a global issue, and it's not just in their own backyard, so to speak. It's everywhere, and there's many people raising their voices to speak out against this atrocity. So yeah, hopefully it makes us more serious, or it makes us appear more serious, and people realize that this is an injustice that's happening everywhere.
Yes, definitely. And were there any word campaigns against animal testing or against vivisection before this campaign?
There was.
Well, there was.
Go ahead, Barb.
Well, there was the one that Betty first told us about back in 2020.
Yes.
But I don't know if there's been anything else that certainly not anything else we have been part of. If maybe prior to our time, but I'm not aware of anything else.
There was a group that about 10 years ago or so were protesting University of Toronto. Mm-hmm. Which we only found out maybe about a year and a half ago. But that group didn't last that long. And since then, most of the members are not even part of our animal rights community. But there was some people at that point protesting University of Toronto, because back then they were protesting against primates. They were testing. University of Toronto was testing on primates. Mm-hmm. So this particular group focused on UFT and that issue, and since then, I'm not sure. I'm sure they had an impact, but since then, UFT has stopped using primates. Mm-hmm. That's the good thing. The unfortunate thing is, as we found out through our research at University of Toronto, they use hundreds of different species. Mm-hmm. Right. So hopefully, now that Barb and I and Tava are part of the animal rights community, hopefully, through our campaign and our persistence, we'll get UFT to start thinking to transitioning to non-animal methods.
Yes. Yeah, but to answer your question regarding world protests, we're not aware of other ones aside from the one we were involved with in 2020 as a one-time event, and we hope to continue having our worldwide event as an annual occurrence.
Yes, and it was a really cool idea, and thank you so much for starting it. It was we are very honored that we could participate in this campaign.
Oh, thank you.
And Peter was talking about the pressure campaign that you are doing against the University of Toronto. And could you tell us more about your tactics? But how do you try to achieve that they stop using animals for experiments?
Yeah, so first of all, Tava focuses all efforts specifically on University of Toronto. So we only target U of T. We do sometimes collaborate with other groups like We the Free, and when they go to a particular lab just, I think, north of Toronto, we do sometimes join them, but they are the main organizer. But Tava specifically focuses all efforts on U of T. And pressure campaigns, as we all know, can take years and years. It's a hard sort of undertaking, and so we have to sort of come at it from all angles. The different things we have done. We have shown up at the president's house a few times. We've done demonstrations there, peaceful demonstrations. We went around to all the neighbors' homes and handed out a flyer explaining exactly who their neighbor is and what he's up to. We have done mail out campaigns where we send packages to the university to members of the research department. So we sent them Christmas wishes wrapped in Christmas paper a couple of years ago. So we try to get a little bit creative. We've done marches. The most recent one, which you know about, we hired or rented a media truck, which showed images of animals being tortured in laboratories. We had statistics about animal testing and specifically what happens at University of Toronto. We've done event disruptions and outreach. So we've shown up at a football game at the university. We have shown up at a graduation ceremony, convocation. So, you know, we don't want to ruin these events for the attendees, but we want to draw attention to these things. And then we've done lots of email campaigns where, you know, we set up an email and people just click on the link and shoot it off to the university. And this last one, as part of our worldwide event, we actually had hundreds of emails sent to the vice president of research. So that was pretty great. We've done a petition. We've gotten thousands of signatures on that. And so, Peter, if you can think of any other tactics, but we've kind of done it all. We're not limited to sort of one idea because we don't know what's going to be effective. And we think that different people from the public will respond differently to various tactics. So you got to try it all.
Yeah, we even did a email call, online call to action where we sent pre-written messages to companies and businesses that donate to University of Toronto. So we did one of our monthly campaigns was to focus on the donors.
Yeah.
Just to show them our dissatisfaction and just to make them aware of where their money, or at least part of their money, is going, right? Part of their money is going towards research that involves hurting animals. So I'm sure if their customers knew what the money was spent for, I'm sure most of them wouldn't be happy. So we're trying to think of different ways to pressure University of Toronto to get them to change, right? So we're always trying to figure out something different.
We actually have shown up outside of the offices of the people who work in the research department. So we have gone to their office and made some noise outside their window. The whole purpose is to disrupt. I know at one point Peter actually went inside and spoke to somebody directly who passed our letter on to the president. So and then we also did a phone zap where we provided phone numbers that people could call to let the university know how we feel about what it does. And so I guess we're trying to annoy them as much as possible. And we hope it works. We also did just in December, cruelty-free Christmas carols. So we stood out in the cold and we sang Christmas carols for which we changed the words a little bit. And we gave out vegan hot chocolate and engaged the public that way. So we honestly, we really try to do what we can, and we don't expect anything to change overnight. This is something that's going to take years. It's a very difficult task, but we're up for it, and we're not going to quit. But we have lots of different things up our sleeve.
Yes, it's really cool to hear that you use so many different tactics and you get so creative with them. And it's really inspiring for us, because when I started doing activism, I didn't know that these exist. I knew only like cube of truth, and that was it. And it's really mind-blowing for us. Obviously, we do a lot more stuff now, but it's still really interesting to see that there are so many things that we could do to achieve this goal, or we could focus on like smaller things like you do. and it's really interesting to see that. And were there any ideas that got backlash from the animal rights community, like something that you do, they told you that it's not going to work, it's too aggressive, or were there anything like that?
No, we have a pretty, like Barb mentioned, a pretty large community here. We support each other's campaigns quite a bit. Actually, later on today, I'm going to be going to an anti-fur protest to support them. So no one's ever mentioned to us anything other than full support of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And so, and when did you start this pressure campaign?
Sorry, when?
When did you start the pressure campaign against Toronto University?
Well,
the first one,
yeah.
No, if I remember correctly, the first one was in December of 2020.
Yeah, so a few months, just a couple months after Tava was born.
Because right after we did our first event, we started talking about our second event, going to the downtown campus. We started planning for that, but soon after, like Barb mentioned, we went into our second lockdown. So we didn't want to. We couldn't really put a large group together, and we wanted to follow the guidelines and the rules that were set up by our local governments to keeping everybody safe. So we did our first online. I believe it was the petition, the first one we did.
I think
and then then during COVID, during lockdowns, most of our campaigns were online. But as the restrictions started to lessen, we started going out again and doing live events, to the point where now the majority of them are live events.
Yeah, and we do a combination of live and online, just to kind of come at it from all angles, but also to give people an opportunity to take part if they can't come out physically to support us.
And is there a team of people who come up with these ideas, or is it just you two, or how do you come up with all this stuff?
Yeah, you're looking at them.
Okay.
Just the two of us. It's just the two of us. We do, so because we have such a large animal rights community, there are people who have amazing talents in various areas. So once in a while, we'll reach out to somebody to ask them to help with an aspect of our event, but the ideas come from the two of us. Yeah, small team.
Yeah,
small but mighty.
Yeah, that's good.
You are the strategy unit.
Yes. And are there different teams, like, for example, a team for I don't know, graphic design, or like media, or different teams like this, or just people who are good at something and you can ask them to do certain things for you?
Yeah, it's just people we know who like, we have a contact in Poland who is really great with graphic design. So he actually designed our posters for us, our signs that we hold up at events. And I think it's really important to lean on each other, right? Because why not help each other out? We all have the same goal in the end, right? And so we're happy to help others, and we're really happy to accept their help as well. Because we know we can't do everything alone.
Yes.
We don't have all the skills, right? So yeah, we lean on others in the community for sure.
Yes.
Which is part of the reason why we initiated our world protest, right? To meet new people, to work together and support each other, right? Just like how some people, when we first started, were happy to support us and give us some guidance. We've been doing that, not that we've been doing it a very long time, but we've been doing this now about 3 years. So we're happy to pass along any experience and guidance we can offer people as well. So we're looking to build our team, and maybe not as Tava, but as a network international.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that it's really nice to hear that you get so much support and everyone helps out, and that you have a supportive community. I mean,
yeah. And also the reason that we were able to find you guys is because András and I met online through Challenge 22. And when we were planning this world protest, I said to him, like, I'm from Budapest. I would like to bring on somebody from Hungary to join our world protest. And so he introduced us to you guys, and we're very grateful. So
yes,
thank
absolutely.
you, András. Köszönöm.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, you guys, now that we know each other, like Barb says, we're more than happy to help you as much as we can, kind of share ideas or bounce ideas off each other. We're more than happy to help you as much as we can. Absolutely, because we're all in this together. We're all fighting for the same cause, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. Christoph, what is your question?
Yes, so I would like to ask, do you think it's more important to target the organizations or universities, or do you think it's more important to raise awareness to the public and make the public become a form of pressure to the organizations, or which do you focus on more? Because you said that you kind of try to attack the university from like multiple different angles, but what do you think is more important?
I think both are equally important. You have to attack the university in that sense, but you can't do that without the support of the public. So it has to be a twofold thing. I don't think one is more important than the other.
Right. And part of our events, whether they're live or online, part of it, like any campaign, is outreach, right? To talk to people about what's going on and how they can make a difference. So like Barb said, it's a multi approach we take, and I think everybody should take, focusing both at the same time, the institution and the public. Because we want to pressure the institution just to let them know, hey, we're out there, we know what's going on, we're not happy with you, we're going to keep, like Barb said earlier, annoying you until you make a difference. And then hopefully the people will start participating in getting more involved, either through groups like ourselves, or sending emails or phone calls, or even as students going and talking to these people who are at the high levels of the university and say, you know what, we're students here, we know what's going on, we're not happy, we expect and we want change. So it's a multi-approach.
Yeah, a lot of what we do is handing out flyers to the public that explains what happens there, how they can get involved. We even went to the campus once and put up flyers everywhere, and the university reached out to us on social media and asked us not to put stuff up without getting permission. So we're getting noticed. And yeah, even if like sometimes we don't actually go to the university, we go to major intersections in Toronto where we know there's tons of people. Everybody knows about the University of Toronto. They have campuses or buildings all over the city, even outside of the city. So sometimes it's just educating the public, letting them know, and then having them send those emails so that the university knows that it's not just us, right? We're just kind of the organizer, but the public, when a lot of people don't even know what happens. They have no idea, because the university, you know, talks about how progressive of an institution it is, and how it's a world leader and all these things, but never ever in its marketing does it ever talk about, hey, we test on animals. They recently had an event, I think it was last week, called Science Rendezvous. It's an annual event that they do in conjunction with other cities around the world, where they bring the science out of the laboratory, so to speak, and they take it to the street, and thousands of people show up. It's very popular, apparently, and they show people, you know, what they're up to, and the amazing scientific experiments and things like that. But there's never, of course, any animals who they bring out. That's all hush hush. It's all kept hidden. It's all a secret, you know. Even like the way that the animals are delivered to the university, it's all like in a hidden sort of alleyway, and like I'm sure they do it after hours. Like nobody really knows what's going on. We have a friend who works at the university, even they don't know. It's all like top secret, as you can imagine. People are shocked to learn about what's happening there. So we have to educate the public, and we have to get them involved, because there's no other way we can be successful. No way. We can't do it. We need the help of other people.
Yes, definitely. And do you do investigations? Do you film the cruelty that is happening to the animals?
No, we haven't done that yet, because as you can imagine, first of all, we're not sure exactly where these facilities are at. We're trying to learn, so hopefully we can maybe not so much as get in, but at least, you know, be a little bit more effective in fine-tuning our campaigns. But we haven't done anything of such. But we are getting more and more information through the Freedom of Information Act, which the university, being a public institution, is obligated to give us some information, not all information. So we've already made 2 official requests, and we've gotten quite a lot of information. So we're hoping to keep applying for more information, just to give us a better idea of what's going on in there, and you know, how to help us in our campaign and our outreach.
Yes.
Just to touch on something, we do know for sure the location of one at UTM, Peter, the University of Toronto, Mississauga.
That's true.
But it's not the entire building that that does animal testing, so we don't know where within the building it is, and we, I think, are very correct to assume that it's not anywhere near an entrance, and it's probably extremely high security. So we haven't even considered trying to go inside. That's certainly something that we would be interested in the future if the opportunity arose, but we have not done anything like that, nor do we know at this point how to go about it. I think it would be very beneficial for the public to see specific footage from University of Toronto, but I'm sure that it's probably nearly impossible to obtain that kind of information. You'd have to have a whistleblower from the inside.
Security, I would assume security would be quite high.
Yeah,
but we're like Barb mentioned earlier, we've made some contacts of people, either our friends or friends of friends, or people we just meet through outreach, that have connections with University of Toronto, and even themselves finding it hard to get certain information from the university. So like Barb mentioned earlier, everything's very hush hush. It's not something they want to show what's going on.
no.
But hopefully, as we become better at what we do, because we've only been doing this 3 years, and it's just Barb and I, so we're constantly learning and trying to become better. So as our campaign continues, hopefully we'll be able to at some point get that kind of information and get it out to the public. So
I do want to mention that there is a university here in Ontario, University of Windsor, and it has I guess a department or a division called CCAAM, which is the Canadian Centre for Alternatives to Animal Testing. And it's interesting because University of Windsor also tests on animals, but they have this laboratory that is 100% dedicated to non-animal methods. And that's something that we constantly reference in our outreach, in our events, because we want to show people that these facilities exist and that they're doing great work, groundbreaking work. I know they have received awards and recognition for different things they're doing. And so it's important to show that it's not just an idea, right? There are actual places right here locally in Ontario and elsewhere in the world that are using these cruelty-free alternatives. They exist, they're being used. And so one of the things we always push is that if University of Windsor can do it, University of Toronto certainly can do it too. They're just not willing to.
Yes, I can imagine that it's very difficult to get information from these universities, and I think it's a very good tactic that you choose an example and you show them to the people. Christoph, do you want to ask something or add anything?
Yes, just one more question about what you said, that you think targeting and communicating with the public is also important. So what do you think is the best method for this? What communication techniques do you use, and how do you make people notice you? Do you have like more personalized conversations with individuals, or do you give speeches and show videos to make people notice you, or how does that work?
Well, that's a great question. In all our live events, we do have speak outs. So we do share information of what is going on at the university and in general. So we do share that information with the public. As with any communication, the strongest and most effective communication is one-on-one in person. So when we do these live events, we have dedicated people that do outreach. They have pamphlets that they give out, and they start conversations with people, right? Just to inform them of what's going on, how they can help, if they need further information, where they can go to, how they can contact us. So that kind of sharing of information is probably the most effective. And as well, online, we do post quite often on our page stories and information of what's going on in the world of animal testing. So I think people are enjoying that there, and then we reshare those as well. So again, communication takes on various forms, but the strongest would be, in person.
And it's really important for us to mention that TAVA is very respectful when it comes to the way it handles these types of interactions. If somebody is angry at us, they don't agree with our message, they yell at us, or they argue, we don't argue back. We don't engage with that. We just stay calm. We provide them with the information if they're willing to listen, but we never go down to their level, because we maintain a certain level of professionalism. And I think when the public sees that we're very level-headed and we're not, we're passionate about what we do, but we're not, like fired up and everything. We hope that shows that, we're willing to engage in a peaceful, professional conversation. It's really important for us to present ourselves a certain way. And we've seen, some events, done a little bit differently, but we're very calm, and we try to be friendly and approachable. And we do think that helps us a little bit, certainly not like yelling at the public and shaming them and things like that.
Yeah, but you also shame like organizations and
Of
people who are
course.
it's important.
But
And,
we do that in a certain way too. Like we don't, we absolutely do. But all we're doing is pointing out the truth. We don't
yes.
use, you know, swear words. We don't go to a certain level. We just state the facts, and
Yeah.
I think that there's a difference in how you deliver that message. So absolutely, if they're not doing the right things, of course we're going to shame them. But are we really shaming them, or are they just shameful and we're bringing that to the forefront, right?
Yes. That's a very
that
good
was
point.
and that was part of the messaging we put together when we used the media truck, the video that Barb and I created, mostly Barb with her knowledge of computers and stuff like that. We put a strong message and about what U of T does and who is responsible at U of T for what they do. So, and we played that video over many times over a period of, I think, a couple hours. So a lot of people got to see that video, and hopefully they they learned a few things, and hopefully they'll do their best to change some of their behavior.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Christoph, do you want to add something?
Well, I was just thinking that you said that one of the forms of communication that you use is sharing the simple truth with people and showing them what actually happens. Have you ever been told that that's a way of forcing something onto the public? Because that's often a critique that we get, that by just simply telling people what they're contributing to is in a way aggressive, and in a way it's forcing something onto them.
Like forcing our views down other people's throats, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I personally, Peter can correct me if I'm wrong, but personally, I don't think we've ever encountered something like that. At TAVA events, I know we have certainly encountered that at other vegan events. I think the difference here is that even non-vegans are against animal testing. And so it's very hard for them to argue against what we're stating, especially when we're putting in stats and we're putting in the sources of where we got these statistics from. We're not just pulling these things out of thin air. So it's very hard for them to argue with it. Whereas when it's something, I guess, very specifically vegan, like anti-fur protest, like what Peter is attending later, or a vigil where we are I don't know if you have them in Hungary, but like where we watch the slaughter trucks arriving at the slaughterhouses, that, yes, we receive a lot of pushback, but I think this is very different. And so if we ever do get pushback, the argument is more like, but it's necessary because we need to cure XYZ, or it's always been done this way, that kind of thing. But I've personally never I don't think we've ever experienced them saying, well, stop pushing your beliefs down my throat, I'm going to keep testing on animals if I want to, or I'm going to keep buying products that involve cruelty. Like, nobody has actually said that to us. Do they continue contributing to those things? Yes, but they haven't actually thrown that in our faces. Am I right about that, Peter?
Well, not to that extreme, but I've had conversations of people who are not supportive of what we do to overall, only because most humans have a speciesist attitude, and they think that their rights override the rights of others. But through conversation, they might not walk away agreeing with what we do, but they do walk away with a better understanding of what we do. And I've had a couple of people who walked away, open-minded, and at least they said, you know what, I'm going to look into this further and, see what I can get from it. But so
at least we planted a seed, right?
Yeah, yeah. There was once we had a conversation, I think it was one of our first events. We had actually a student who worked at one of these facilities at UFT.
Yeah.
And they saw us, and when they came up to us to start talking to us, they were very tense and nervous of how we would react to them, right? But we were very polite, very respectful. We didn't judge them. We didn't scream at them. We didn't want to make them feel unsafe, right? Because there's no conversation can be had when you put other people in that position. We had a nice conversation. Again, we expressed our beliefs, our understanding of what's going on, and our expectations of what we would like to see going forward. And again, they didn't walk away with a changed mind, but it was a conversation, and hopefully they left thinking, you know what, maybe I need to revisit or think more about what I'm doing and to whom I'm doing, right? Because you hear stories all the time of so-called scientists that work in laboratories, and then at some point they realize what they're doing and who they're doing it on is wrong, and they stop doing it. So people are capable of change. Unfortunately, not everyone's capable of change immediately, but it's a slow process, and it takes one person at a time, one conversation at a time. But I tell Barb all the time this. I strongly believe that we're going to see an end to animal testing, definitely within my lifetime, our lifetimes, and even sooner. So I'm very confident that.
And Canada recently recently made a commitment to end animal testing in cosmetics, right, Peter?
Yes.
With a few exceptions, unfortunately, but this was huge because Canada is pretty behind compared to some other places around the world, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from Canada. But yeah, we're behind the times over here.
That's interesting.
But further to what Peter said, believing that change can happen, it can be very discouraging, right? It can be really hard to wake up and think, oh, like it really wears you down. It's so difficult to know everything that's happening out there, all the exploitation that animals are suffering through. But if we didn't have hope, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, right? There is hope. And we were not born vegans. We only went vegan. Like, I've been vegan for 7 years. Peter, I think like 3, 4, 5 years. But we changed because people like us showed us the truth. And they didn't, say, here it is, change. I mean, that's what they wanted. But they gave us the tools to, they planted a seed, and then we did our research, and then we came across all this information that we didn't even know existed. And so I think change is possible. Will it be difficult? Will it take a long time? Yes. But I do think that we can improve things at the least. And by we, I don't mean Tava, but I mean us, like, collectively around the world, activists working together for the same goal. Whether it's, animal testing or other forms of exploitation.
Please, can you elaborate what the goal is actually, or define it?
You mean Tava's goal?
No, you mentioned that everyone's goal in this movement is the same.
Oh, well, to change people's hearts and to stop exploiting animals, we need to start looking at animals as equal, right? We cannot have this speciesist attitude where we think that we are somehow at the top of the chain, and that we can't give into human supremacy, basically, right? We have this belief, right? And we've been systematically conditioned throughout our lives to believe that animals don't matter, and that we humans are the most intelligent and the best and most important species, and we are not. And we have to change the way people see these things, because without that change of heart, nothing is going to change, right? Like, you can show them videos all you want and tell them all you want forever, but if they don't understand the basics of it, I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, they're just not going to get it. We have to stop believing that we can dominate animals, right? We don't control the, I mean, we do, but we shouldn't be controlling the world. We don't have a right to do to these individuals what we do. And so I think the goal, aside from like specific goals like phase out fur and end animal testing and all those things, is to stop exploiting animals. It sounds simple, and it's not. It's a huge task, but you can't. Yeah, Peter, maybe help me out here. But
you're saying it right. Yeah. As animal, I'm sure as yourselves as well in Hungary and all over the world, as animal rights activists, our end goal is animal liberation, right? Whether it's like Barb said, the fur trade, or through entertainment, or for testing, or for consumption, or for clothing. It's all related, right? It's all animal exploitation, abuse, and eventual killing. Whatever reason, it's all connected, and it's all wrong. So our goal, as yourselves, as everybody, is to end all of that. When we do these protests, one of our chants is animals are here with us, not for us. And that's so true, right? They're not here for us to use, exploit, and kill. They're here with us. We live together. We share this planet together, and that's that's the message we want to tell people. We're all in this together, regardless of two-legged, four-legged. We're all animals. Some are human, some are non-humans, and we all need to respect each other and give each other the ability to live free and happy.
Yes, I think it's very important to remember sometimes why we are doing this exactly, because some people tend to forget that we are doing this for the animals, and they see this movement as a transition to a plant-based diet, and they think that we can only talk about the animals once we accepted that the plant-based diet is the norm, so we don't make people defensive. But I think it's much more important to focus on the animals rather than to be afraid that we will hurt people's feelings. And I think it's a bit different situation for us, because you explained that how you see people change, and that you give out information, and they will see that they are doing something wrong. And for us it's a bit different, because we get a lot of negative backlash from the public, because we focus on like more these typical vegan issues, like animal exploitation in general, not specific to anything. And so like more focused on the food industries, but we sometimes mention like other industries during our protests. And sometimes these protests are quite controversial, and we get a lot of negative backlash on like social media and on the media. So that's why on our page is full of like trolls and even when we did this protest against animal testing, when we joined your campaign, it was full of like people trying to argue against it, like how is it these people would I would agree that if we should test on vegans instead of animals, it would be so much. They were saying that, like so many stupid things, and it shows me too that we need to talk more about these issues because people are not aware of it, and if they knew these facts, they would be convinced that it's wrong. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that as difficult as it is to deal with the trolls and the negative backlash, especially if it's happening in person at the time of your demonstrations, I do believe that at least a portion of those people who say those stupid things are triggered, you know, and they wouldn't be so defensive if you didn't hit a nerve. You know, perhaps, you know, you're making them uncomfortable because somewhere in there, you know, maybe they don't realize it yet, but somewhere in there, there's like an ounce of knowledge that, maybe this is wrong. And if I, and I don't want to confront it because then I have to change, right? And so, you know, I hope it doesn't discourage you from continuing to spread this awareness, because you have to make people uncomfortable, right? That's the only way that they're gonna change. I mean, I was so uncomfortable. I watched a documentary years and years ago, long before I went vegan, and it was very graphic. I couldn't even watch the whole thing. My husband was the one who said, hey, let's watch this. And it still took us years to truly make the connection, because we made excuses. Like, I believed, like, oh, that's horrible. I didn't like what I was seeing. I felt horrible for the animals, but I convinced myself that it was only happening at the facility where the undercover footage was taken, right? I believe the humane myth that it's okay to buy free range eggs and organic eggs. And, you know, you convince yourself of these things because you don't want to change, because change is uncomfortable and change is hard. But if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you just never know, you know, when somebody will change. And that's one thing that I keep in mind, that maybe somebody I interacted with during an event isn't going to say, oh, you've convinced me, I'm going vegan now, right? But maybe like 5 years down the road, that seed that I hopefully planted will just keep growing. And the more awareness there is, the more public events there are, and things like that, maybe they'll start to realize, hey, I think it's time for me to make that change. Because that light bulb for me didn't go off until years later. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? But it's really hard to change people's minds. And to some extent, you can't even blame them, because we are conditioned to believe these things, right? Like I have a baby, right? A daughter, and I'm reading her books that feature animals, right? Really cute books, and we love the animals, right? And they show them happy and cute and all these things. But then if we weren't a vegan family, I would be feeding those same animals to my daughter, right? And so, like, obviously I don't, but we are so hypocritical in and it starts from childhood. Like it's just such a part of our lives that how can we expect people to suddenly change when our entire lives we've been programmed to believe one thing, right? In a way, you can't even blame people, right? In a way.
Yes, I agree.
In a
Christoph? Yeah, Christoph?
I have multiple questions. One is based on what you just said, that you think then you agree that you think it's important to kind of take people out of their comfort zone to make them fully understand what's going on, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But not to the point where, and this is my opinion, and you know, obviously, and my technique has improved since I first started, and I'm hoping that it will keep improving the longer I do this, right? But not to the point where you're going to, you know, seem judgmental or get angry and just block what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
You have to at some point. Not some point, but you have to kind of see it from their perspective too, right? See where they're coming from, and get them talking more than the one problem like activists have when they do outreach is they do all the talking. It's just blah, 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 this and that and that and this and this and stats and stats and stats. Okay, bye, go change. That doesn't work, right? Everybody's gonna go. I didn't hear nothing. So you have to let them do more talking and get them thinking on their own. Let them get to that point on their own, right? So what do you think about this? You know, have you thought about trying this? Have you thought about maybe this? Have you looked into that? Do you think you can change here? You can think you can change there. Get them thinking on their own, as opposed to you telling them where to go and how to think, right? So outreach is, you know, it's a technique that takes forever to learn. And I don't think even, you know, I see vegan people here, like animal rights people that have been doing this for 10, 20 years. And they still, you know, are learning and getting better all the time, right? So it's very important when we speak to people, how we speak to them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
when we do, sorry, go ahead.
I also, I think it's a very important skill, and we have to know how to speak to the people. But I also think it's important to know that not everybody we're talking to, because there are a lot of people who just don't want to change, and it's a waste of time talking to them.
You're right.
Exactly. I was just going to say exactly that it's a waste of time. You have to know your audience, right? And when we have events, we always ask specific people to do the outreach, because they have a very nice sort of tactic, a very nice like demeanor, and not sort of threatening, and they're very approachable. So we're very strategic as much as we can, depending on who's coming to our events, in choosing who's going to do the outreach. And then we print out talking points for them. We give that to them in advance so they can sort of brush up on the knowledge. And then we always say, like, if you can't answer something, send them to us and we'll talk to them. Not that we're experts on everything, but it's really important to also have the right people doing the outreach, because it's the difference between like hooking somebody in and somebody being like, these guys have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, and you're right.
And sorry, I wanted to mention one more thing, and this goes back to like an earlier question about our different tactics. One thing that I think is really important to note, and I know Peter will agree with me, is that we focus specifically on animal testing, which I mentioned, but we don't. So for example, in the winter time, when we're outside doing events, there's tons of people wearing Canada Goose, all the different brands that have, the fur trim and whatnot. And it's so tempting, right, to go up to them, or even while they're talking to you, to say, by the way, did you know that this is what happens to geese and coyotes in the making of your coat, and things like that. But it's really, really, really important that we don't go there, because pressure campaigns lose credibility when you go off topic. And so while we care about, obviously, ending the fur industry, or ending the fur trade and all that, and all these other issues, we are an anti-vivisection organization. So we don't bring up fur when we are at our events. We don't bring up food, right, at our events, because unless we're serving food, then maybe it might come into the conversation, but we focus on one subject and we do it well, because otherwise it's a mishmash of things and you lose credibility. And that's, I think, so important. And I think maybe that's one of the things that sets us apart from other organizations, because I think, and I don't blame other people, because it's so tempting to be like, by the way, did you know that that's wrong? Did you know that that's wrong? But you got to sort of narrow in on what your message is.
Yes, it's really interesting to see this approach, because for us, we focus on animal rights, and this seems to, for the vegan community, seems very restrictive, and they always criticize us, like, also you don't let people talk about health and environment at your events, and we say no, because we are an animal rights organization, or an animal rights group. And it's so good to see that you are there and you choose this specific goal, because you think that it's important enough to make effort and to sacrifice your time and energy for this issue. So yeah, I agree, and it's really good to hear that you are doing this.
And you know what?
And
And
you
we're
have
not.
these rules.
Yeah, and we tell the people who come to our event too, like, don't do that, right? And we don't want the people representing TAVA to get involved in that, because that's a reflection on us, and
Right.
we don't feel bad about it, because we know that we care about all the issues, and we attend events for other issues too.
Sure.
But because we have such a big community and there's a focus on every area, we know that us not talking about it doesn't hurt the movement, because there's somebody else focusing on that, and then there's another person focusing on the other subject. So yeah, you want to like sort of specialize in what you're doing and do that one thing really, really well.
Stay on message.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
really good advice, and I think this will be the closing line, because our meeting will end in less than 1 minute. So thank you so much for participating. I really enjoyed this discussion, and I hope we will talk soon and join the campaign next year.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. We love getting to know you and to hopefully further our relationship. And we definitely look forward to you guys joining us again, and we'll stay in touch.